Hi, I'm Luciano Pellegrini, and next we're going to do a rustic tomato soup. We're going to start by braising all the ingredients that go into the soup before the tomato, and there is an onion, just an onion. We're going to julienne, and then we're going to put some green onions, everything wants to be rough chopped, that's why it's called rustic. And of course some sliced garlic. I'm going to add some olive oil to the pan. Here we have a saucepan going. I actually had it on the stove already, so that it's nice and hot. I'm going to add all this stuff in. So I do heat up a pan before I add ingredients in it, so that I cut down the amount of time that any item I put in a pan will just simmer and sit in a pan. So I just want frying and braising right away. So while this goes, I have my tomatoes here. I have some heirloom tomatoes, delicious, and we're going to peel them. So we're going to make an incision right at the bottom, and we're going to core out the top, just like that. Now these are fairly ripe tomatoes. So I've washed the tomatoes previously, and then I'm going to dump them in. Well, first of all, I need to make sure I have something to scoop them out of the water nearby. And just put them in the hot water, just for a little bit. That's too big. So I dig one out, and then I see that the peel comes off, so I just take it out. Now, normally if I was to use the tomato for a cold preparation like a salad, I would actually dip the tomato in iced water to cool them off and stop the cooking process. But since I'm actually going to put them back in a pan in a second, I won't bother with that. So the peel, as you can see, comes right off. And you want to remove the peel because it does have a rubbery texture, kind of unappealing. I keep an eye on my onions, just don't want it to burn. Burnt onions and garlic does tend to acquire a bitter taste. Anything burnt for that matter. And I'm going to fish out my other big tomato here. So obviously the tomato will be very hot when you take it out of the water, so you might want to just put it on a cutting board and use the tip of the knife to help you with. So we're going to put all this stuff on the side, and then we're just going to chop our tomato, or just cut it into big pieces, just like that. Smaller tomatoes, you can actually just quarter if you want, just like that. Or cut into 6 pieces. Normally what you want to achieve is for every piece to be roughly the same size. It is not an exact science, but you do want consistency. So here I'm actually braising the onions, and what I want to see is for the onions to become translucent, almost as if you could see through them. And that is the sign that they're ready to go. So then here, I'm going to wipe off a little corner here. I'm going to slice off some bread. This is a piece of ciabatta. Another slice. And I'm going to cut these into pieces as well. I'm going to put it here with the tomato. They're going to go in the pan at the same time. So we're actually going to season the tomatoes here. I'm going to season our onions. I'm a firm believer of seasoning your ingredients so that it all tastes the way you want it to taste. Of course, don't go overboard, or especially with soups, or by the time they boil down, they might become a little too salty. So my onions are just ready for the next addition, so I'm going to put the bread and the tomato in. And now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go and wash my hands, and I'll be right back. I'm going to braise the tomato with the onions just a little bit together. I'm going to add a little bit of basil, sweet basil. And this is because we love to recycle. We're actually going to use the same water we used to peel the tomato. We're going to add that onto the soup. And voila, all of a sudden you have a soup that has not stopped boiling. I'm going to save some of the water just in case we need to add some more. And while we wait for the soup to be ready, this is a soup that has to boil for 10, 15, 20 minutes at the most. We're actually going to prepare some garlic croutons to go alongside with the soup. So here we have the same ciabatta we used earlier. And we're going to cut slices about 1/3 of an inch thick. When cutting a crusty bread, or any bread for that matter, it's always good to use a serrated knife. So we're going to lay these on a baking pan. We're going to drizzle some olive oil over it. And I hear the soup is actually boiling a bit too much for my taste, so I'm going to lower the fire the heat a little bit so that it is one step above simmering. It's a quick soup, but we don't want to break any records. Now we're going to pop the bread in the oven just for a few seconds. I have the oven set on to broil so that the heat comes right from the top. All I want to achieve is to have just a little crust on the bread slice. So I've flavored all my ingredients. I'm now going to taste the soup at this stage to see how it tastes. And of course, as I flavored the onion, I flavored the tomatoes, but I did not flavor the water I put in the soup. So here I have a vegetable base, which I'm going to add to the soup. And if you can't find powdered vegetable base, of course, you can use a bouillon cube. If you want to keep the soup vegetarian, then you'll use a vegetarian cube. Otherwise, chicken bouillon cube is fine. Check on my bread. Not quite ready yet, so we'll just stir the soup again. We will need some chopped parsley for the garlic bread, so we're going to take some and chop it off. So we're ready for the next step for the garlic bread. So I just add a very light crust over the bread, no color whatsoever. I'm going to slice off the end of one garlic clove, and then I'm going to brush the bread over the top. And then we're going to sprinkle some Parmesan cheese over the bread. And if you spill some on a pan, that's quite all right. I'm going to show you what we're going to do with it afterward. And a little bit of parsley. and we're going to pop it back in the oven. So over here we have our soup. The bread has softened quite a bit. We're actually going to break it up into smaller pieces with the help of a whisk. Or if you had a handheld blender, that will do just the job as nicely. But remember, this has to be a rustic soup. And welcome back. Our crostini are coloring nicely in the oven, and our soup is just about ready here. So all we need to do is put the finishing touches. So we want to taste the soup one last time, make sure that all the flavors are there. And I don't think it needs a pinch of salt. And of course, you'll be the judge of your own soup whenever you make it. And I will say the soup is done. So I'm going to take it and hot right off the pan. I got my little bowl ready here. Put it right there. And then we're going to get our crostini. And they're just perfect. And we're just going to add one right over there. Oh, listen to that sizzle. Touch of black pepper. And last but not least, a little drizzle of olive oil. And perfect soup for all season. Enjoy.